Hello, my friend.
Hello.
We get to do another
I
episode
love
together.
the tiger print. I know I know the podcast listeners can't hear it, but it's hot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like it too. I've had this shirt for a long time, but it just goes with so many things.
Yeah.
Like under a blazer.
Looks great with jeans. You probably can wear black slacks with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very versatile.
Very nice.
Okay, so I get to bring the questions today.
Shoot.
First question. I know that gifts is not one of your love languages, but what is one of your favorite gifts you've ever given to someone else?
Ooh. I gave my stepfather a Garmin golf watch. What that means, I don't know. I think it calculates from the next tee, like it takes over to the next hole.
Okay.
That's my golf lingo, tee hole.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I know that sounds like not an exciting gift, but it was something that he was so excited about, and then he started utilizing right away. And that's really, I don't like giving gifts that don't, I don't want to give somebody something they're going to stick in their closet. I'd rather write them a check. I feel like that way with my kids too. I know that sounds terrible, but I would rather give you money to get something you want than to give you something that then's not going to be utilized.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And that's why I have a hard time, because gifts aren't my love language, and I have a hard time people buying things for me, because if I'm not going to use it, you just wasted your money. And because it doesn't fill my tank, it really just feels like a waste of money.
Yeah. Okay.
I got to get better with that though, because back a couple episodes ago, our love language talk made me realize how there's things I don't even find gratitude in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, it doesn't fill my tank, but if somebody gives me a gift, I struggle to be gracious.
Be grateful.
That's a problem.
Okay. So the Garmin golf watch.
Yes.
Didn't even know that was a thing. Very
It's a
cool.
thing.
What is a piece of workout gear that you would highly recommend?
I have a set of earphones, headphones that go over my ears and then sit on the outside of my ears. They don't actually plug my ears. Mm-hmm. So because I like to exercise outside, then when I run on the road, I can still hear the road noise and still be able to listen to podcasts or music or whatever I'm listening to. I feel like it's really important when you are somebody that is outdoors on the road to be able to still be plugged into your surroundings.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
So they're Trex titaniums. I think you bought a
bought
pair,
some.
didn't you?
Yeah, because you recommended them.
Highly recommend it.
And they are fantastic. I really like those. Yeah.
It's crazy how they just sit on the outside of your face, but you hear it so clearly.
Yeah, you can hear cars approaching. You can hear people approaching. Mm-hmm. They're really good.
Yes. So that's a no-brainer to me.
Nice. Okay, what is a really good thing that has come out of 2020 for you?
This podcast.
This
has been so fun.
It has been.
People, I just had somebody approach me last week and just ask questions about it. And I was like, it's so fun. I have so much gratitude for this. So this alone, if this is what I want to remember from 2020. Obviously I want to remember everything else that went down, but what I embrace as far as going forward is definitely this podcast. So thank you,
that's
friend.
Exciting.
Yes. All right. So our topic today, it actually came from last week's podcast. I started thinking about, we talked about getting older and how it feels. And one of the things I started thinking about is a skill that will be so valuable for you when you're younger and when you're older. And if you can master the skill, I think you can enjoy growing older much more. Mm-hmm. And that is the skill to adapt and adjust to situations.
Oh yeah.
And I think so often we hear people say things like, can't teach an old dog new tricks, or this is just how I am, and this is how I'm always going to be. I can't do that because, and they've created these reasons in their mind on why they can't adapt to a change of something. So I started thinking, if myself and my children, and I know that I've gotten better at this skill, can hone in the skill to be able to adapt no matter what the scenario is. That you're a person that could sleep in a tent in the woods, or you could with gratitude, or you stay in a 5-star hotel. If you're a person that needs to, you can walk or you can run. If you're a person, and it made me think of you because you are currently have an injury that you're taking some time off. That can be a little stressful when you have an ailment or an injury that has to change your regular habit. Be able to adapt to that so that you don't stay in this funk because you have an injury. If you're a person that eats the same thing for breakfast every day, there may be a time that's not serving you well anymore. Are you able to change? So I see you as someone that is very good at adapting and adjusting. I saw it most of all when there was a time through when COVID hit and your company had to change course a little on what they were marketing due to the fact that things looked a little different. And you may have missed a beat in your head, but from the outside, I saw you adapting and adjusting and turning the corner and changing and going after it pretty quickly. And so that skill, how has that benefited you in your life?
Oh my gosh, yeah, tremendously, because it allows you to move forward in gratitude. You said the word gratitude. You can move forward in gratitude without angst about what's going to happen or tears over what you're leaving behind. You have to learn to adapt. That's so important. And when you get stuck in, but it used to be like this, then you lose the joy of what you have in front of you. And we see it too when you go into a new organization or a new group of people. Like you join a new group, a new church or something. And instead of taking a moment and understanding what that organization is about and finding the beauty in what they're currently doing and seeing how you can enhance it, so often people do this where they come in and say, well, we used to do it this way. Or you move to a new neighborhood and the neighborhood has events. And you say, well, our old neighborhood did this. We should do that. Well, enjoy what you had with your old neighborhood. Enjoy what you had with the previous organization. But take a moment and see what this new situation offers and the new opportunities that are available.
Yeah, because what's led to, that's when disappointment and resentment, we've talked about that already a couple episodes ago, start kicking in. And this also happens big time in the corporate world. Things are constantly changing at the corporate level. I've seen it. My husband works in corporate America, and his years there, we've seen, it's become less of the good old boys shake hand deals and more strategic planning. There's outside entities that come in to constantly evaluate systems to make sure that they are running most efficiently. And that, for some people that are not able to adapt and adjust, they become frustrated, angry, resentment kicks in. I feel like that's the key. Adapting and adjusting is the key to not allowing those types of emotions to start so that you function at that level.
Yeah, so you brought up new systems coming in, not handshake deals. So years ago, that's how we did our work. We would go and talk with somebody about doing a job. Yes, this is what I need. We would make it, install it, invoice them. That was it. Well, then we started playing in the big leagues with bigger banks, and we had to do statements of work, which was so annoying to me at first because it was boring. I hated reading these legal documents. I hated writing these documents and having to put everything, okay, so what is something that is considered to be in here? What is something that we need to make sure we note is not included? You had to write down everything you did in the statement of work. And I had a bad attitude about it at first because it was so time consuming. And then I thought, well, okay, I can be irritated about this and stay and not go after the big accounts. Or I can see what the purpose of this document was. This will make my life easier. When the customer makes a change order, I can invoice them for it because I've told them ahead of time it's this amount per hour or, however it makes sense in your contract. Okay, well, we can live and die by this SOW, the statement of work now, because we've written it all out. And it made such clarity for everybody that was involved. And so it's all about how you approach it. Now, I love it. So then what I did was I created a template. This is my standard SOW template. And I had all my documentation in there. And then all I have to do is edit it for that particular customer. I could have stayed mad and reinvented it every single time, or been like, okay, how can I make this work for me?
So that was classic adapt and adjust, right?
Yeah.
Because, and I love that you really, what you did is you either were in the place of staying mad or making it work for you. Mm-hmm. And we're giving job situations to this topic, but it's like everything.
The entire year has been adapt and adjust.
Yes.
Adapt and adjust. Adapt and adjust. I feel like we've both done a good job of adapting and adjusting during this time.
I think so too,
Yeah.
but I do see that it's a skill that I really want to continue to help my kids do.
Yes.
Because although through COVID in general, they have done a decent job of adapting and adjusting, I can see where I'm missing the ball on teaching them, showing them the importance of being able to adapt and adjust takes you out of that scenario of chronic anger, disappointment, frustration.
Well, having conversations with them around that and helping them to find ways to adapt and adjust. So I think we've talked about this, but my girls didn't get to go to camp this year. They love going to camp. Mara goes to camp too. They love it. And that was a big loss in their life. Well, we sat down and said, okay, it's not going to happen this year. So what are some other options? What else could we do? And we started looking at options that they could do, and they decided they wanted to get certified to scuba dive. They loved it. And so while we were on the trip, we intentionally had conversations about, I know you're missing camp, but how fun is this right now? This is something we can do for the rest of our lives together as a family. And taking the opportunity to reinforce that lesson that you adapt, you adjust, and look at the good that came from it.
And it doesn't always come natural. I mean, it really, it is something that it's a skill. I mean, I know we're using all these technical words when we talk about emotions, but yet it's so true that it is a skill. And that's why when I brought up the whole, you can't teach an old dog a new trick, that's a mindset. Mm-hmm. That you can stay there and believe that it is what it is, or you have the skill to make a mind shift and go and do something different, look at something different, find gratitude in something different. I kind of always told Annalise early on when we talked about even college, and I kept saying, this was one of the greatest advice pieces my stepmom gave me back in college. You learn to play the game. That's all she said. And I'm thinking, it's college, it's not a game. Yeah, you learn to play the game. Like you do what you're supposed to do. You show up. If you don't understand or you screwed up or you didn't show up, then you go and you talk to the teacher and you talk to the TA. There's times some tears flowed. I mean, really, I was adjusting to decisions that were made, and then instead of just sitting in this, life is terrible, I failed this test, everything, I'm probably going to fail out of college, there's no chance, which can be that feeling in lots of different things, that sit in it. And instead I was finding my next strategic decision to make to try to get past what I was in. And that's where I keep thinking that I don't want my kids to not have the skill to adapt and adjust and learn the hard way, because there's a lot of rocking in the corner with decision after you've made a decision if you aren't thinking, okay, this is what it is, where do we go now, kind of situation. Being adaptable is a total blessing if you can really work on your mindset. That it means also you have to give up control, though. Because if you are always trying to control every situation you're in, then typically if it's not going your way, that tends to bubble up that fear, that anger, that frustration. And when you know that you're not in control, that you can adapt to whatever life is handing you, I feel like there's a gift there too.
Yeah, so this is interesting. And you give up control, but you gain power. So there's strength in it. Even though when you say you give up control, what you're giving up is trying to grab the situation by the neck and make it be what you want it to be. And that is out of your control, because the situation is what the situation is. Sometimes you can change it, but you can always change your mindset to it. And in changing your mindset and your approach to it, you come into your power to really have an influence for change. And it doesn't mean that situation changes, but it means that your approach to that situation changes. So
I think you're right.
Your situation changes.
The giving up of control, but you gain power. I think that like hit it on the head.
Yeah.
And that with that gains the confidence and the ability to see everything in a different light.
Yeah. Because you're not so focused that it has to be this way. You're embracing the opportunity that comes in the moment that's presented itself. You're living in the moment and embracing the moment.
Yeah, change is like inevitable. I mean, it's just everything is going to eventually change.
So sometimes, quite often actually, not sometimes, when you're faced with a change, it can put you into a tailspin. And this is a great topic we're talking about, because I really believe this holiday season is one that is going to be different. It's going to be one that we need to change and adapt to. And if we are not willing to look at the opportunity that's in this season, then we could end up staying bitter or being angry or being upset that what we want the holidays to look like, what our traditions are that we're used to doing, we can't do that. We could get pretty upset and bummed out and depressed even about it. But you've got to adapt and pivot and see, what can I do to make this opportunity, this season, the best it can be?
I think that is so good. I mean, as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, the holidays this year. I mean, there's going to be so many different scenarios that are potentially not going to feel the same. And if we are not able to be okay with that, it's going to be very miserable. And it doesn't have to be that way. So let's just kind of talk about some of those scenarios that might not be the same, because it may be that right now a listener needs to like start thinking about these things. I think this is a great thing to start thinking about now. There may be a family member that is just not comfortable joining you for the holidays because of the pandemic that's going on. Like it may be that you want to be with them, but they're not comfortable joining you.
Yeah.
And we have to be okay with that.
We have to respect everybody else's feelings and positions during this time. My mother-in-law and I were talking about Thanksgiving just today. We were sending emails back and forth, and she said, I hope we can all be together at Thanksgiving. Maybe we can meet outside at the river. And I said, I want to see you. I miss you. I don't know if I'm comfortable coming. Not because I'm worried about getting the virus. I'm concerned about bringing it, and I know there are great concerns in our family over it. And my kids are back in school. They're doing dance. We're going to church. We're having small group. My daughter works at a restaurant, and we're taking all the safety precautions, wearing masks, social distancing. But I don't know. Unless I were to take 3 tests and all 3 came back negative, I would not have any confidence that I'm not bringing something to the family.
Yeah, there's no guarantees.
There's no guarantee. And I told her, I said, if someone got sick after we left, I know I would feel bad. We all want to be together. I've been spending Thanksgiving with them before we got married, before Ken and I got married, and he's a game warden, and he has to work Thanksgiving. But since the girls were born, we still went down and spent Thanksgiving weekend with his family, and he would try to come down for a meal or something. But it's just what we do. It's a tradition we love. It is times we cherish. I think one time you even asked me what my favorite meal was, and it was Thanksgiving, and I said it's because of who we spend it with. And I want to do that, but I know it may look different.
Well, we always travel back to the Midwest every single year for Christmas. I mean, I've always been in my hometown of Galesburg, Illinois for Christmas.
Yeah. And
we don't know our for sure plans now, but I said to my husband, I've always shipped all gifts there initially, because our car's packed just with people and our stuff. So I said to Ben, that can't happen this year, because although we still want to go home, we haven't been home in a year now because we didn't go home at summertime, which we do because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I want to go back, but if there's a chance that somebody starts getting sick, that leaves us here. I can't have our gifts be there.
Right.
Because I want to create something here. So we're putting together a whole new game plan of what it looks like. We're going to be traveling home in 2 vehicles.
Yeah.
If we are able to go, because we're going to have to pack gifts this year too. And having these conversations with my kids, because my kids only get Christmas in Illinois. They hope there's going to be snow on the ground. They only know that. And being around family and cousins and grandparents. And I'm trying to be open with them right now and saying, that's the game plan, guys, but we are going to be flexible.
Yes.
Because we don't know how it's all going to go down. But setting up those expectations, I don't want them to be disappointed. I don't want to be disappointed either. So I want to be able to adjust. But that is something that I think is a great conversation, because as women, we want to create this magical time around holidays. We have these expectations of how everybody's going to feel, the food we're going to eat, the fire in the fire. Yeah, we have this vision of how it's going to be. And this year we don't know exactly how it's going to be. And that's okay. If we are able to embrace the fact that we can be adaptable through this time. I mean, life is really teaching us some really important lessons right now, and some of us are embracing them, and some people are fighting full blast at it. And my prayer is that through us having these conversations that people will really address inside of themselves. You know, are they ready to adapt and adjust? Have they been? And if not, if they haven't been adaptable, what are the emotions that have come out of it? And seeing the correlation of that feeling that it's so hard to get out of bed every single morning, that I'm so disappointed all the time. I'm anxious. I am angry. You know, all of these emotions have come out of, maybe it's because things don't look like the way that you think they should. And be able to make the correlation and be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, that's my wish for our listeners, is to be able to really address the skill of being adaptable. And if that hasn't been a part of your life, what does that mean? What has that caused?
Well, you have to let go of drama. You have to let go of the addiction to that disappointment. It can be addicting, and it sounds crazy if you've never heard that before. But then you'll start to notice, when I rant, when I express my disappointment, something feels better inside of me. And so I keep doing it, but it's not serving me well. Just because I get this high off of it doesn't mean that it's good for me. And so when you're faced with that situation, you have to look at it and say, okay, do I want to stay in a place of anger and resentment and disappointment that it can't be the same? Or can I appreciate what I had? Can I find gratitude that that beautiful thing was in my life? And then find gratitude for what's in my life right now. I mean, it's true when we lose somebody close to us too. Things change. And you just have to make the decision. It doesn't mean that you're not sad about it. But it means that you don't stay in that place of disappointment and woe is me and that victim mentality because things are different now and I don't like it. Things will always be different. They just will. But it doesn't mean they have to be bad.
And that's another podcast we need to do sometime, is talking about the addiction that we have to things like disappointment. And because that was a new concept to me years ago. Being addicted to disappointment.
It made no sense to me when I first heard it.
Being addicted to anger. Being addicted to being a victim. Like, it doesn't even sound like, why would you be addicted to that? It's nothing. What's the payoff? There's no payoff. Yes, there is.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother podcast, but that is...
But you have to recognize it to be able to let go, to be able to adapt and adjust, because what you have to say is, oh, I didn't know this was coming. I didn't see this situation happening. I'm going to intentionally let go of my anger and disappointment or whatever negative emotion that's holding me in that place and say, okay, this is my situation. How can I make this work? How can this be great? It's interesting. So we're trying to develop a piece of land right now. And I have a situation where I want to get a dock. But there are these stipulations around the land, but there's this easement that gives us a little leeway, but there are so many questions. Is it personal? Is it a community dock? Do we put in a ramp? Do we place it in this one location? If we place it here, what does that mean down the road? All these parameters. And as I'm talking to the people with the power company that own this lake, they keep saying, I know it's confusing. I know it's complicated. I know it's so confusing. I know it's so confusing. he would stop in mid-sentence and tell me how confusing it was. And I said, it's complicated, yes, but we just need to get all the pieces together. I just need to understand all the pieces. And we'd talk a little bit more. It's so complicated. It's so complicated. It's so, no, not complicated. You see, it's so confusing. It's so confusing. I was like, it's very complicated, but let's get all the pieces figured out. Well, anyway, we thought we had a plan, and we were moving forward, investing money, mobilizing people, and then a wrench got thrown into the plans last week. A pretty big wrench.
I don't even know about the wrench.
You don't know about the wrench.
I don't know about the wrench. Okay.
So anyway, we're out there, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. You said this, and he said, yes, but I didn't know about this one other situation with the way the lots would be laid out. So it gave us a big problem. And I was like, okay. He goes, man, he was so upset. And he was like, I'm so sorry. This is so confusing. It's so confusing. And I was like, well, it's complex, and another layer of complexity's been added to it. But we just have to work around it. He kept saying, it's too confusing to understand. And I was like, it's just like a puzzle. And then I'm finding humor in the fact that I'm like, we can figure this out. It's like a puzzle. But he was stuck, and it's so confusing. Or it's so disappointing, because it really could be highly disappointing, but it's just what it is, right? So what's the best thing for the situation? We have that opportunity with every single thing we face in life. Every single loss we face, every single disappointment we face. We can say, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do with this? This is how I see it right now. And sometimes our greatest blessings can come out of that loss or that disappointment. But if we can only focus on how upset we are about that situation, you're never going to pivot. You're never going to adjust.
Right.
And sometimes you adjust and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you adjust again. And then you adjust again. And you just keep doing it until it works.
Well, I feel like you're so good at this skill. That's why I wanted to bring it up. Is adapting and adjusting to things is a skill that I have seen in you. We have a little joke. I don't know. It's probably a joke that happened before me, but that Dee Dee finds fast passes. Like, you know, Dee Dee always has fast passes. Like, she just, and it's really not. It's you being like, okay, I need to figure out something different.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work. I'm going to figure out something different. And then eventually we've got a fast pass into something because you are very good at adapting and adjusting. And your life would look very, very different if you were just addicted to disappointment, sitting and stewing and staying there. I mean, really, look at how different your life in general would look.
My life looks different because I used to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I used to create the worst possible case scenario in my head when something happened. And you brought it up a little bit earlier about being disappointed and you create these stories in your head. And when you were talking about that, I was like, well, that's where disappointment's going to come from, because you're creating stories in your head that haven't happened. You weren't doing that. You're saying you didn't want your girls to do that. You wanted to teach them not to do that.
Right.
But, man, I used to do that all the time. All the time. Something bad was coming my way, and I would say, okay, if I imagine the worst possible scenario, then anything less than that, I won't be disappointed. That was a horrible thing that I was doing, because it just put me in this place of being.
It's like your feet are stuck in like quicksand or cement or something. When you are there, you think you're doing something because these stories are being created, but you're stuck in other areas.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was so bad. But I lived there. I definitely had a victim mentality. Big time. for years, and when I acknowledged it, see, the thing is, I didn't even know, I didn't know what that was. So how could I recognize it
You
in
wouldn't be
myself?
like, I am Dee Dee, and I have a victim mentality.
Yes. I like for people to feel sorry for me. It makes me feel special. No.
I like to rant every time I come into the room.
Quietly, in my head,
It
not
gives me
out
power.
loud. Yeah. And so once I realized this and I recognized it, then I said, ooh, I got to get rid of that. And it took a while to become skilled at not having that mindset. But if you have that woe is me victim mentality, like something happens and you're like, why me? Or somebody does something that hurts your feelings and you're like, I can't believe they always do this to me. And you start noticing you're having these communications with yourself in your head. Then,
Or if something's done and you're like, I just knew that was going to happen.
yes, that's a good
I knew
one.
it. I knew it all along that it was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, get rid of that.
Yeah,
Get rid of that big time. Yeah. So, and also drop the coulda, woulda, shoulda. Because you can play that game all day long and it doesn't matter because it's not what you did. And unless you're learning from it, unless you're using it as a learning experience, you're just going to stay in regret and disappointment. Yeah.
Ben and I, one year, we were living in Illinois. He was, I don't know if he was a salesman or running his own location, and it was a really bad farming year. I can't remember. I don't remember if it was a drought or it was a flood. I mean, I can't remember what happened, but I mean, the crops were terrible. And we were trying to figure out how to help the farmers. And he was hearing so much of that coulda, woulda, shoulda. I mean, like, they were like, it was all over the place.
But, I mean, it is true. You can stay in coulda, woulda, shoulda. If you stay in should, I should have, then you're never going to be in I am and making things happen. And change is beautiful. Sometimes change hurts, but change is usually beautiful in the long run.
And I could fill notebook paper, probably pages full of things that I probably should have done. I mean, I really could. If I wanted to go there with my brain and think of different life decisions that I made that would have served myself, my family better, I could fill pages. But why would I want to do that?
To learn from it. That's the only reason. If you acknowledge something, yeah, it would have been a really good idea if I had done this. I'm going to Disney World. It would have been a really good idea if I had gotten fast passes ahead of time.
Yes. I'd rather just learn in the moment than go back and like revisit it.
But you learn, and then you're like, okay, so next time I go, I'm gonna get the fast passes because they're a game changer. You know, like that's why you say should. But if you are emotionally tied to regret or like feeling bad about yourself, putting yourself down.
I failed.
Yes, and allowing that guilt to come in. Because guilt is sneaky.
Yeah.
It'll creep in. Then you won't learn from it, and then you can't adapt. But if you can learn from it, you can adapt. If you want to learn more about this, the book Mindset by Carol Dweck is fantastic. And it delves into that and how to teach it to your kids. And there are also Facebook groups. Like there's a Facebook group for growing kids with a growth mindset. And so it's ways that you can plug into your child and to promote a growth mindset within your children and within your teens. It's really fun to read this and see what other people are doing in order to create that growth mindset in them, because that's how you adapt. You have to have a growth mindset to adapt.
I heard some different motivational speakers, or I don't know what they were, business leaders, that they pay their children when they read certain books that they feel will add lifetime value.
Interesting.
And so they've said, yes, you'll pay them to mow the lawn. It teaches them hard work, pay them for this, pay them that. But they said the best investment I make as far as paying my kids for something is pay them to read a book like that. Or there was a number of books. I actually took a screenshot of one picture of all the books that this multi-millionaire entrepreneur wanted his child to read. I know which one of them was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. But so that may be one. I mean, I'm putting this little thought in my pocket now as a tool of going forward, because I do want my kids to have a growth mindset. So yes. If I just said read this book,
no,
not going to happen. I'll give you $30 to read this book. Then that may change the game on it.
Yeah.
And it could be a skill that they learn long term. So
yeah,
I'm glad you brought that book up, because I have seen the diagrams that have come from that book. I've never actually read the book.
Mm-hmm. It's an easy read, but it's a kind of thick book.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. But it's a
$50.
50 pages.
$50. I said $30. Not a chance. $50. Okay, maybe.
But it's fantastic. But that is a skill a lot of kids are not growing up learning, because they're not having to adapt to anything. The world is adapting to them and their needs, and it's not serving our kids well.
Oh my gosh, that's huge. Okay, see, I feel like we need to start closing this up, but that is huge too, because that is one thing I think that is an issue when kids come through high school and the college, and then they get out in the world by themselves, and the world very much has started to adapt to them. I even find it in when you talk to kids about their school experiences, or you talk to teachers. When we were in school, like, it didn't matter if the teacher was right or wrong, they were still the teacher. You know what I mean? Like, there was this level of respect and authority, and the world didn't bow down to us. But that's not necessarily true in mindsets these days. There's a little more of the world adapts to the student or the child more than it used to. Mm-hmm. And that won't serve them well beyond when they go outside of school.
No, and actually, I think one great blessing that's coming out of this whole COVID pandemic situation is things happened and people had to learn to adapt and adjust, because you couldn't go back and say, no, I want to play ball, so you have to let me play ball. Nope, sorry, everything's done for the spring. We are not having any spring sports. Where before it was, well, my kid wants to play on this team, but my kid also wants to do this other activity, so you're going to need to let them do both activities. Or the kid's going to be like, I'm going to do both of these, and it doesn't matter what the rule is. Life was adapting to kids, and I'm not saying like kids are brats or anything like that, but it just became...
They respond to the situation they're being raised in. I mean, I don't think kids are brats either. I mean, I think millennials is one of my favorite generations.
Oh, yeah,
oh my gosh, like I could go on forever on why I love the mindset and the activism of that generation. But it has been how their world has changed, and it doesn't serve them outside of the cocoon that has created that world.
Right.
And that's not what we want. Like, I want my kids to once they decide beyond high school what they're planning to do, I want them to step in, feel empowered to make decisions. They may fail, but then you figure out, you adapt and adjust, you figure out something different. I want them to be successful adults.
Yes.
Go forward, walk forward, and have confidence that you have everything you need to go forward. You're going to have to learn along the way and develop new skills, but the world's not going to like cradle you along the way. You got to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think that is one great thing that's come out of this COVID situation, because people of all ages were forced to revisit that skill or begin implementing that skill in their life for the first time, adapting and adjusting to a situation. And it's hard, and that's okay. It can be hard. And you might fail at first, but don't give up. You just keep going.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Dee Dee.
That was a great topic. So if you would like to learn more about our coaching business or check out what we have going on, visit us at www.liveyourdesign.life.